a couple of years ago, I just got back from a trip and I was really tired. And I'm not usually subject to headaches, but I had a terrible headache. And so I went to this little drop-in clinic to see if I had the flu or something. And the guy said, "Is this the worst headache you've ever had?" And I said, "Yes," which I now know is a significant question. And then he said, "Has anyone in your family ever had a cerebral hemorrhage?" And I said, "Yes, my father when he was 34. And literally within minutes, I was taken off to the emergency room. And as I'm waiting to be taken back to have this CAT scan, or MRI, whatever it was, I'm remembering what happened to my dad. I'm remembering how he changed. He went from being this loving, safe, my hero, to becoming this angry, confused, and ultimately violent stranger. And I was terrified of my father before he committed suicide. And all this is going through my mind, and I just feel the enemy saying to me, "You know, you're just like your dad. You know, that you're just about to face exactly what your dad." And I get into this room, and the technician puts me on I'm about to get this metal tube, and he gives me a little panic button. And he said something, and he squeezed me. But what came out was this incredible remembrance. You know, he said, "You're going to be alone in here." And I wanted to say, "No, I am not." But I didn't want to say that in case he moved me to another area in the hospital. But I just had this huge understanding. I will not be alone. It says Hebrews 13, "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." But what I loved about that was that Christ patterned for us how to pray when it's hardest to pray. You know, in the garden, he did not pretend this was going to be easy. I mean, he sweat drops of blood, which is a condition, hematohydrosis, that happens every now and again when people are on death row, when they're actually walking the green mile. That can happen. So Christ was in agony, but because he processed his pain in the presence of his Father, it changed everything. And he made space for grace. So that's what I did in that tube. I just poured out everything in the presence of my Father. And it makes space for the grace to say, "You know what? You love me more than anyone could. You love my husband, Barry. You love our son, Christian, more than I ever could. And you will be there." And I found out afterwards I had just been overworking. I was, you know, but my brain was relatively fine. But the thing was, I had the peace of Christ before the knowing. And I think that's what we're promised. When we're afraid, when we're struggling, we're promised his presence, which for me was greater than an answer in that moment, because his presence changed everything.
I was thinking, and God's presence is manifest through people, like any other mother right now whose kid's going off to college. Of course, you think about, you know, okay, I am not going to be with this kid 24/7. You know, I put traffickers in jail for a living, so I'd love to put a chip in my daughter and have special security detail after her. You know, I'm like, y'all. I was sitting the other night, I was in Chicago, and I love Dr. Anita's daughter, Olivia. She's like, we just text, and because I was going to be in Chicago and she's there, we organised to meet for dinner. And as I was sitting there, I mean, she's so delightful, so awesome, but as I was driving back to my hotel, it was just the sense of the Lord going, "Chris, it's okay. Just like you were here and got to have a meal with you know, Olivia, and I got to text Dr. Anita at the time, and Dr. Anita's like, "Oh, this makes my mama's heart so happy." Like, you know, Chris, I've got people ahead for your daughter that are going to be there down the track when and you're going to have friends and people that are going to be texting you going, "I just saw your daughter, I just saw," it just shows me how much we need each other in this time as well, and how the body and God's presence is often manifest through his people on the ground. And as we're going through this this time of incredible transition on the earth right now, all of us, and this is why I'm glad we're doing this program right in the midst of this season, because there's not one person on the other side of the screen that's watching this that in not some way, shape or form is going through transition. Even if you're binge watching TV to try to skip it, or, you know, the fact is we all are. That's it. Welcome to planet Earth right at this moment. Whatever you're doing to numb it, we're all in it. And that's the way it goes. So for some of us, we're trying to do it alone. And, you know, the strength is, I love what Sheila just said about, I was going into that machine and that chamber, man, you want to know God's in it with you. I've got a little bit of claustrophobia, so it freaks me out, the thought of being in that thing. But you know God's with you, and then other times God will show you through the people. That's why it's so important, even in this time of isolation, to make sure that somehow you're in community, whether it's online or if you are able to go to church, and that's a possibility, do that. Because I think the one thing we've realized more than ever in this last year is I think we know that we were not designed to do this alone. That it's so hard to get through on our own.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe today and you'll never miss a new upload.
And don't forget to check out our Better Together shop. Thanks for being a part of our community.